So what happens when you take a wave-based shooter, a tower defense game, and sprinkle in some artful hero shooter-inspired character design and put it in VR? Well, you get Ancient Amuletor. This game was on my radar for a long while, as most VR games are since it's my favorite way to play. But I wasn't expecting much from the title, especially since I'm not that much of a fan of the tower defense style games. And the way this game was marketed, it made it seem like that was primarily what it was. After checking this game out, I have to say I'm impressed, especially with how polished it is. Ancient Amuletor is a first-person wave-based shooter, and yes, it does have tower defense elements, but primarily you're killing enemies in waves that are trying to attack crystals, which you're tasked with defending. I was so focused on the shooting while playing that it didn't feel like a tower defense game to me, which I thought was good. The game sounds simplistic, and it is, but everything is so fluid. The game has 4 characters: a mage, a gunner, an archer, and a puppeteer. I love the design of each character, but I will say up front, my favorites are the gunner and the puppeteer, because those 2 characters can be played very effectively while sitting down. And since I can't stand, that makes a huge difference to me. To be fair, the entire game can be played seated, but I feel like the archer and the mage are more effectively used if you're able to stand. I had another person try it for me since I couldn't, and they had better luck with it than I did when I played seated, because especially with the arc of the bow of the archer and the angle at which the mage throws his orbs, I feel like it's just easier to tackle if you're standing. And that actually leads me into one of my only complaints about the title, which is I thought the archer and the mage respectively could have been a little bit more accurate, especially the archer. I had trouble hitting enemies in less than 3 tries most of the time. However, after watching some others play it, I'm starting to think that was a personal issue, so I'm just going to take that off the table, because overall the accuracy is pretty impressive for each of the characters. In terms of story, you won't find one here. But that's fine, because for a game like this, people are meant to just jump in, enjoy blowing enemies away, and jump out. You can play single player, but to me, where the game shines is its co-op. There are 4 levels currently, or I should say 2 worlds with 2 levels in each world. But on the menu screen, you can see space where it says coming soon for other levels, and I've also heard on Twitter that they are adding more characters in the future as well, so this could become a very fleshed out title. But as I said, I think where this game shines the most is the co-op. The action can be just as fast and fluid as the single player, except you have a group of up to 4 people, and you can all work together to kill the enemies and eventually kill the bosses. Speaking of bosses, the game has 2, and surprisingly I thought both of them were very easy to handle, which is good if you are someone that likes to dominate in games. But I have a feeling when they come out with newer bosses as part of the DLC, we might see ones that are a little bit more of a challenge, as I've seen plenty of people talking about how easy they were, and we all know word of mouth spreads fast. I should also say that this game implements the move controllers to control all the mechanics of your characters. Whether you are shooting the bow, shooting the guns with the gunner, flailing your arms with the puppeteer, or throwing the magic orbs with the mage. In regards to sound, I don't have too much to say other than it's really great. The sound effects are solid, especially the puppeteer. The sound he makes when you throw him out is quite entertaining. But I'd really like to go back and drive home the point that the reason to get this game is the absolutely perfect way in which the implemented mechanics are suited for VR. Some of the games we get on PSVR, it just seems like that the VR component was an afterthought. That's not the case with Ancient Amuletor. The mechanics of each character, whether it's arcing the bow back with the archer, throwing the orbs with the mage, reloading your guns with the gunner, or my favorite, smashing enemies with the puppeteer, everything just feels right and natural with the move controllers. And when I say VR wasn't an afterthought, let me give an example. When using the puppeteer, you can aim him anywhere you want him to go. When you release him, he lands, and then after that, wherever you swing your arms physically, he mimics your motions and attacks the enemies, which is something I haven't seen a lot of on PlayStation VR, and I thought it was really novel and well done. He is an absolute blast to play. The game has some really gorgeous visuals as well, and you can tell that the attention to detail was definitely put into the level design. There is no full locomotion in this game. You use teleporting, but the teleporting fits with this style of game. There are designated perches which your characters can move to and from to get a good angle on the enemies, so it doesn't feel like you're being forced to teleport, it just feels like you're supposed to be, which is great for a change, because usually teleportation is just something that's in the game that none of us actually want. So should you pick this up? Absolutely. Even if you don't like wave-based shooters, there's fun to be had here because of the co-op ability and because of the fluidity with which the VR mechanics are implemented. Instead of sitting stationary and putting your arms out in front of you and just mindlessly pulling the trigger, this game requires you to be a little bit more active and even put thought into where's the best spot for you to be at the moment, since enemies attack multiple spots all at once. I think the way in which this game can wear a player out will surprise many people. I generally play it 20 to 30 minutes at a time for that reason, and you can definitely expect to break a sweat. The only thing really holding the title back is a lack of depth. As I said before, you get 4 levels and 4 characters. It's fun enough to play, and it'll definitely keep you coming back, but once they add a few more levels, it'll be much more time-consuming for players, which nowadays is what most people want. The longer, the better. Despite the lack of depth in the content, I think you'll still get your money's worth because I believe this game is only priced at $15 currently, and you're going to want to play through the levels to beat them, but odds are you're going to want to come back and co-op with friends and try to beat your personal best scores or get 3 stars in each of the levels. So for 15 to 20 bucks, I think it's worth it, especially with how well made the game is. I feel like all VR players should support well-made VR games. VR as a whole tends to get a lot of shovelware, So when we get games that you can tell were made with love and attention to detail, I think we should try and support that. Now, not to say that every game needs to be purchased blindly, but in this case, I do feel like you get your money's worth. And as I said, since the co-op is the best part of this title, if any of you want to play with me, just leave me your PSN in the comments and I'd be happy to play with you. Well, there you have it, guys. Until next time, this has been the Handy Capable Gamer. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Check out my blog and my Patreon page if you feel like it. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.